All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we are talking all about teen tech, and I think you guys are going to find this one super interesting. We've got some great research from the Pew Research Center, and we're also going to hear from two experts on this. Dr. Mitch Prinstein, who's the chief of psychology at the American Psychological Association, and also clinical psychologist Melissa Greenberg. So let's jump right in because the first stat that I read in this research kind of blew my mind. Almost half of all teenagers are online almost constantly.
Wow. Yeah, I can see why that would be alarming.
Yeah, so before we all freak out and throw away all the phones in the house, let's hear what the experts have to say, because one thing that really surprised me is they both emphasize that it's not actually about the screen time itself.
Yeah, that's right. It's not just about how many hours they're spending online, it's what they're actually doing during that time.
Yeah, okay, so I've got to admit, I'm guilty of this too. I'm always trying to get my kids to put their phones down, but maybe I should be asking different questions. I'm thinking, is this educational or is this just mindless entertainment? But it sounds like it's even more nuanced than that.
It really is. Think about it this way. You could have two teenagers both online for 2 hours. One of them's researching for a history project, and the other one's just scrolling through social media. Same screen time, totally different experience.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. So instead of just focusing on the clock, how do we actually figure out what's going on in their digital world?
Well, Greenberg suggests asking your teen, how do you feel when you're on social media? And how do you feel after?
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about monitoring their time, it's about getting them to think about the impact it's having on them.
Exactly. And it's about looking for patterns. Are they constantly checking for likes? Do they get anxious when they can't be online? Are they comparing themselves to others in a negative way? These can be signs that things are out of balance.
This is making me realize that I need to step up my game. Instead of just saying, what are you doing on your phone? I need to be asking, what's going on in your head while you're scrolling?
That's it. You're getting it. You want to understand their inner world, not just what's happening on the screen.
Okay, so we're talking a lot about the potential downsides of all this tech. But of course, it's not all bad.
Right. Definitely not. Think about LGBTQ plus teens, for example, who might not have a supportive community in their offline lives. Online spaces can be a real lifeline for them.
Yeah, it's like finding your people, right? Especially if you feel like you don't fit in anywhere else. And I bet it's the same for those kids who are super into fandoms and stuff.
Absolutely. It's about finding your tribe, sharing your passions. That's social interaction, even if it's happening online.
Okay, so this is all making me think that even if it's not all bad, there's still this challenge of how much is too much, right? Even those positive online experiences can become excessive.
You're hitting on a really important point. Even healthy things can become unhealthy if they're not kept in balance. So how do we actually help teens set those boundaries once we understand the what and the why behind their tech use?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Do we just lay down the law and say no phones after 8 p.m., or is there a better way?
Ugh, well, you're not going to like this, but the experts are pretty clear on this one. Involve your teen in the decision-making.
Ugh, really? I was hoping for some magic formula.
I know it's not easy, but think about it.
Yeah.
We want them to eventually manage their own TV time, their food choices, even things like substance use. It all starts with learning to regulate their own behavior.
So it's we're giving them the tools to become responsible adults.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not about giving them free rein. It's about guiding them toward making healthy choices. Greenberg actually gives this great example of a teen who took a hard look at their own social media habits, saw both the good and the bad, and decided on a 1-hour daily limit. Themselves, not their parents.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. A self-imposed limit. I'm sure it doesn't always work out that perfectly, but it's inspiring to hear that it's possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about building that foundation of understanding open communication and letting them have a say.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the how much of teen tech use. But what about all the other stuff that gets pushed aside when screens are dominating their lives? I'm talking about things like sleep, real-life hangouts, maybe even schoolwork.
You're right on the money. It's not just about what's happening on screen, but what's not happening off screen. And trust me, there are some non-negotiables when it comes to healthy teen development.
I'm all ears. Let's break it down.
Something that really struck me as we were going through all this research is just how much emphasis both Dr. Prinstein and Greenberg put on the long-term impact of all this teen tech use.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We're not just trying to survive until they turn 18, right? We want them to actually thrive as adults.
Right. It's not just about today's meltdowns over screen time limits.
Yeah.
It's about what kind of foundation we're building for their future.
Makes you think, huh? So beyond the immediate stuff, What are some of those long-term things we should be keeping in mind?
One thing that both experts are really concerned about is the impact on social skills.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like online interaction is just not the same as face-to-face.
Exactly. It's like trying to learn a language from a textbook. You might pick up some vocabulary, but you're going to miss all those subtle cues, the body language, the way people react in real time.
Right. Like you're not going to become fluent just by reading about it. You got to actually go out there and practice talking to people.
And those are the skills that make or break relationships. You know, friendships, romantic relationships, even professional success later on.
Oh, for sure. Like imagine going on a job interview. If you spend all your time interacting through a screen, you might not have those skills to connect with the interviewer.
That's exactly the point Dr. Prinstein makes. He says adolescence is like prime time for developing those relationship skills that we use for the rest of our lives.
So if they're not getting enough real-life practice, it's like they're missing out on this crucial window of development.
That's the worry. And it could have consequences for years to come.
Wow, that's a little sobering. It's like we're not just trying to get them through high school, we're trying to set them up for success in life.
Exactly. And again, it's not about cutting them off from technology altogether. It's about finding that balance between online and offline interaction.
Okay, so beyond like the basic put your phone away at dinner rule,
Yeah.
what are some ways we can encourage more of that face-to-face connection?
Well, it starts with making your family culture one where those in-person moments are valued. You know, family dinners, game nights, maybe even working on a project together. Anything that gets you talking, laughing, connecting without devices in the way.
It sounds so simple, but I'm betting a lot of families struggle to actually make that happen consistently.
It takes effort, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy, but it's about making those moments a priority.
And what about outside of the home? Like, are there things we can encourage them to do that naturally limit their screen time?
Absolutely. Sports teams, clubs, volunteering, things that get them out in the world interacting with all kinds of people.
Yeah, it's like they're so busy with those things that they don't even have time to be on their phones.
Exactly. And they're building all these other skills,
Yeah.
teamwork, problem solving, leadership, all that good stuff.
Okay, so we've talked about real-world interaction, but there's another big one that we have to talk about. And I'm going to go ahead and guess that you're going to be pretty passionate about this one.
You know me so well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's something that every teenager needs, but rarely gets enough of.
Sleep. I knew it. I could see it coming a mile away.
Yep, you got it. It's just so crucial, especially for teenagers, that it deserves its own little deep dive here.
Okay, sleep evangelist. I'm ready to be converted. Tell me why this is so important.
Well, think of the teenage brain as like a major construction zone. It's undergoing all this massive rewiring. And guess what? Sleep is when a lot of that heavy lifting happens.
So it's not just about feeling rested. It's actually impacting their brain development.
Big time. It affects their attention, their impulse control, their mood, even their risk of mental health issues down the line.
Wow, okay. So we're talking about way more than just being grumpy in the morning if they stay up too late.
Way more. Dr. Prinstein is very clear about this. Sleep deprivation in teens is linked to all sorts of problems. They can't focus in school. They're more likely to make impulsive decisions. They're moodier. It's like a recipe for disaster.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So how does technology fit into all of this?
Well, you know how that blue light from screens messes with our sleep?
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I'm still scrolling through Instagram at midnight sometimes.
Well, it's even worse for teenagers. That blue light messes with their melatonin production, which is the hormone that tells their body it's time to sleep.
So they're getting this double whammy. The blue light is keeping them awake, and it's messing with their natural sleep cycle.
Exactly. Plus, there's the constant stimulation from apps and notifications. It's like trying to fall asleep at a rave.
No wonder so many teens are walking around like zombies.
Right. But don't worry, there's hope. We can actually fight back against this.
Okay, I'm all ears. What can we do?
It starts with setting clear boundaries around evening tech use.
Like that 9 p.m. phone curfew that Dr. Prinstein recommends. I can already hear the protests for my kids.
I know it sounds tough, but think of it as training wheels for their sleep habits. It's sending the message that sleep is a priority for their health and well-being. It's non-negotiable.
And it's probably good for us parents to model that too, right? Like if we're up all night on our phones, we can't really expect them to take it seriously.
Exactly. It's that whole do as I say, not as I do thing. Doesn't really work with teenagers.
Okay, so no phones in bed after 9 p.m. What else can we do to help them wind down?
Think warm baths, reading a physical book, listening to calming music, anything that helps them detach from the digital world and shift into relaxation mode.
So basically creating a tech-free buffer zone before bed.
Exactly. And ideally, that means keeping phones and other devices ODT of the bedroom entirely, or at least charging them in another room overnight.
I can see how that would make a big difference. But I bet that's a tough sell for some teens.
It's a process for sure, but it's worth it.
Okay, so we've covered sleep. We've talked about real-world interactions. What else are we missing in this whole what's being crowded out by tech discussion?
You know, it's funny, as we're talking about all this, I'm noticing this like underlying theme connecting everything.
Yeah, what's that? What do you think here?
Well, it's all about balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finding that sweet spot between the good and the bad of technology. Balancing online life with real life.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries, but also giving teens space to like figure things out for themselves.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's not about demonizing technology. It's about learning to use it in a way that adds to our lives instead of taking away from them.
And I think a big part of that is communication, right? Really talking to our teens about what they're experiencing online, trying to understand why they do what they do, and then working together to create a plan that keeps them safe and healthy. Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about creating that environment where they feel comfortable coming to us with questions or worries without feeling like they're going to be judged or punished.
And we have to actually listen, right? Even if it's hard, even if it makes us question our own beliefs about technology.
Exactly. We have to approach these conversations with curiosity and empathy, not fear and control.
And remembering that, like, we're all in this together. We're all figuring out this crazy digital world as we go, parents and teens alike.
Absolutely. No one has all the answers. It's about being present, being willing to adapt and learn along the way.
So giving ourselves permission to not be perfect, but to just keep showing up and figuring it out as a family.
And one of the best ways to do that, modeling the behavior we want to see in them.
Oh yeah, we talked about this with sleep and creating those phone-free zones,
Right.
but it applies to everything, doesn't it?
To everything. If we want our teens to use tech in a healthy, balanced way, we have to do the same.
It's like that walk the walk thing. It shows them that we actually believe in what we're saying, not just laying down the law.
And it's not just about what we do, but what we don't do. Being willing to put our own WN phones down, disconnect, and be present in the moment.
Like at dinner time, during family game night, even just hanging out on the couch talking about our day.
Exactly. Creating those pockets of time where connection is the priority, not technology.
It's about showing them that our relationships with each other and with ourselves are more important than anything happening on a screen.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
about remembering what truly matters and building our families around that.
Well, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like we've covered so much ground.
We have, but it's a conversation that never really ends right. But I hope we've given our listeners some good stuff to think about and some practical tips to start making some positive changes.
And I hope this has inspired you guys listening to start talking to your teens about technology. You know, work together, create a plan that works for your family, and find that balance that brings more peace and connection into your home.
And remember, progress over perfection. Every step towards a healthier relationship with tech is a win.
So true. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into teen tech. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.